I will continue the homework problem starting with question 1-0. And for 1-0, I have tan squared theta divided by 2. And remember, for this question, the theta value that we're given was 30 degrees. So if I wanted to rewrite this problem, it would be tan of 30 degrees. And because of this 2 here, all of this is being squared, and then we divide by 2. All right, using the 30, 60, 90 triangle, we need to evaluate tan 30 degrees. Now remember, tan, the ratio for tan is opposite over adjacent. So here's 30 degrees. The opposite is over here. So this is your opposite. And your adjacent is going to be root 3. So if I had to continue evaluating this, this would be 1 divided by root 3. And all this is being raised to the power 2, and then we divide by the 2 there. And after that, we just need to evaluate this. So 1 over root 3 to the power 2, if I expanded that, that would be 1 over root 3 times 1 over root 3, all divided by 2. And 1 times 1 is 1. Root 3 times root 3 times root 3 is going to be 3, all divided by 2. And just like in the previous video, when you have a fraction divided by a number, you just multiply the 2 and the 3. So the final answer here will be 1 over 6. So 1 over 6 is the final answer for number 1-0. Okay, let's move on to this last question here. 4 times cos cubed of 2 theta divided by 5. Now I have a 2 theta there, so the theta that I was given was 30 degrees. So 2 times 30 is 60, so I need to evaluate 4 times cos of 60 degrees. And because we have this power 3 here, all this is being raised to the power 3, and then I divide by 5. And for the cos 60 here, we need to refer back to the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So here's 60 degrees. Cos is the adjacent over the hypotenuse, right? So my adjacent here is going to be 1, and my hypotenuse is going to be 2. So if I had to rewrite this, it would be 4 times the adjacent over the hypotenuse, so that's 1 over 2. And that's all being raised to the power 3 divided by 5. And I just need to evaluate this expression here to finish off the problem. So 4 times, well, I have 1/2 being raised to the power 3, so 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. And this is all being divided by 5, so a little bit of work here. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8, so this would be 4 over 8 divided by 5. 4 over 8 is really 1/2, right? So this is 1/2 over 5. And then just multiply these last two numbers. So 2 times 5 is 10, so 1 over 10. So 1 over 10 is your final answer for that question there. Okay, so now let's move on to question number 2 from section 8.3. And for question number 2, similar instructions compared to question number 1, except that I'm dealing with theta of 45 degrees. So if I'm given sine theta, and if I had to find the exact value, I'm being asked to evaluate sine of 45 degrees. Right? Now the ratio of sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So here's the 45 degrees. So now I'm switching triangles now. I'm going to the 45, 45, 90 triangle, which has ratios of 1, 1, root 2. So if that's my 45, my opposite is going to be this 1 here, and my hypotenuse will be root 2. So this is going to be 1 over root 2 as a final answer. For letter B, I have to evaluate cos theta here. So the question is really asking for cos of 45 degrees. So you will have to do this quite a bit in pre-calc 12. Here's my 45 degrees. Here's my, well actually it's, cos is actually your adjacent. So 1 is right next to my 45. So 1 is my adjacent here. Sorry, the 1 is the adjacent, and the hypotenuse here is going to be root 2. So my ratio is going to be 1 divided by root 2. So remember, cos theta is your adjacent over your hypotenuse, and your adjacent's 1, and your hypotenuse is root 2. For letter C, I have tan theta, so I need to evaluate tan of 45 degrees. So you can pick any 45 degrees. The ratio for tan is opposite over adjacent, so my opposite is 1 and my adjacent is 1, so it's really 1 over 1, which is just 1. Okay, let's move on to letter D now. I have another sine theta here, so this is going to be 2 times sine of 45 degrees. All right, now let's use the triangle here to find out what sine of 45 degrees is. So pick any 45. The ratio of sine is your opposite over your hypotenuse. So it's going to be 1 over root 2, right? So it's going to be 2 times 1 over root 2. And if I multiply the numbers here, 2 times 1 is 2, divided by root 2 is my final answer there. All right, for letter E, very similar problem here. I have 2 cos theta, so I need to evaluate 2 times cos of 45. And then using my triangle, I need to evaluate cos of 45. Now, cos is your adjacent over your hypotenuse, right? You're adjacent over your hypotenuse. So here's my 45. Where's my adjacent? Well, my adjacent here is 1, and my hypotenuse is root 2. So very similar to the previous question. It's just 2 times 1 over root 2. And you just multiply the top numbers here. So 2 times 1 is 2. So my final answer is 2 divided by root 2. Remember, there's an invisible 1 here, so 1 times root 2 is that root 2. So that's how you get the root 2 in the bottom there. All right, so now I have 2 times tan theta here. So since my angle is 45 degrees, this is the same thing as 2 times tan of 45 degrees. And we use the 45, 45, 90 triangle to get tan 45 degrees. So here's a 45 right here. Tan is opposite over the adjacent, so here's my opposite right here, and there's my adjacent, so it's 1 over 1. So this is 2 times 1 over 1, and 2 times 1 is just 2. So 2 is my final answer for letter F. Okay, so now the questions are kind of repeating in a way. I have sine squared theta, and since theta is 45 degrees, I'm really being asked to evaluate sine of 45 degrees, which we already did in a previous question, and then I need to square it. Okay, so just to recap here, sine 45 degrees, you find 45 degrees there. Sine is your opposite, which is 1, divided by your hypotenuse, which is root 2, so it's really 1 over root 2. And all this is being raised to the power of 2, which is really 1 over root 2 times 1 over root 2. If I multiply 1 times 1, that's 1, and root 2 times root 2 is just simply 2. So the answer is 1/2 there. And for letter H here, I have cos squared theta. So this is the same thing as cos of 45 degrees, all to the power of 2. If you look at the 45 degrees here, cos theta is your adjacent over your hypotenuse. So my adjacent is 1, and my hypotenuse is root 2. So this is the same thing as 1 over root 2. 1 over root 2. Sorry, my pen's just not really working here. Let me erase that again. Let me try that one more time. It's going to be 1 over root 2. And all that's being raised to the power 2. And we did that in the previous problem, so that's going to be just 1 over 2 again. Okay, let's go on to a few other ones. Tan squared theta. So tan squared theta, if I had to redo that, that's really tan 45 degrees. And that's being all raised to the power of 2. So ask yourself, what is tan 45 degrees? Well, pick any 45 degrees. Tan, the ratio for tan is your opposite over your adjacent. So here is my opposite. And there is my adjacent, right? So it's really 1 over 1, right? So 1 over 1 to the power of 2, which is just 1. All right, so for letter I, the answer is simply going to be 1, right? Okay, let's move on to maybe 3 more questions for this particular section, and then we'll move on to question number 3. All right, so for letter J, I have 3 squared theta over 4. So this is the same thing as 3 times sine of 45 degrees, all to the power of 2 divided by 4. Okay, so we've done sine of 45 degrees many times already. So you can go back to 2a if you need that answer, but sine of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. And that's being raised to the power of 2 there, and then after that I need divided by 4. So it's just more of a more calculations here once you have the ratio there. So this is really now 3 times 1 over root 2 times 1 over root 2, all divided by 4. Now root 2 times root 2 is 2, right? So the 4 remains. There's a 2 there, and 3 times 1 is just 3, right? So it's 3 over 2 divided by 4. and then 2 times 4 is going to be 8, so this would be 3 over 8. So that's a very good question for practice. Just remember this 2 right here in green is that root 2 times that root 2. Okay, let's move on to some more problems here. Letter K. So we'll do K, L, and M to finish off this homework video here. Okay, so for letter K, I think it's a very similar problem again. I have 3 cos squared theta divided by 4. So what I'm really evaluating is 3 times cos of 45 degrees. All this is being raised to the power 2 divided by 4. And we know what cos 45 degrees is. That this is the same thing as 2b. So this is really 3 times 1 over root 2, all to the power 2 divided by 4. So a very similar calculation to the previous question here. We need to evaluate this part in yellow. So 1 over root 2 times 1 over root 2 is just 1 over 2. So that's 3 times, I'll rewrite the whole thing again. 1 over root 2 times 1 over root 2, all divided by 4. Now remember, root 2 times root 2, that's going to be a 2, the bottom 4. And then this 3 just multiplies with the top numbers. So 3 times 1 is 3, right? And you'll recognize that we get the same answer, which is 3 over 8. So very similar to the previous question that we just did. Okay, so that's the answer for K. K is 3 over 8. Now let's do L here. Sorry, my work is kind of all over the place here. I'll just erase all this. Let's do L here. So 3 tan squared theta divided by 4. So let's do one more of these. So 3 times tan of 45 degrees, all to the power of 2, and that 2 comes from that 2 there, divided by 4. Okay, the problem is tan 45 degrees, we did this already. This is question 2C, and when we did 2C, tan of 45 degrees was just 1, right? So this actually turns out to be an easier problem. This is just 3 divided by 4. Okay, let's do one more problem and then we'll stop this homework video guide. All right, I have sine of 3 theta minus 75 degrees. Remember, theta is 45 degrees, right? So this is really sine of, now what's 3 times 45 degrees? All right, so what we need to do with the calculator is we got to find out 3 times 45 degrees. And that's going to be 135. And then we got to minus the 75. So this is what we're really evaluating for question 2M. So remember, how do I get this 35 degrees? This is really the 3 times 45. And 135 minus 75 is going to be 60. So now I need to evaluate sine of 60 degrees. All right, so 60, find 60 on your 30, 60, 90 triangle. There's my 60 there. And sine is your opposite, which is root 3 divided by your hypotenuse, right? So this is going to be root 3 divided by 2. So that's my final answer for 2M. And based on my timing here, maybe we'll do question 3 as well. Some questions from section 3 now. Okay, so find the exact value for each expression if theta now equals to 60 degrees. Okay. So I have sine 60, or sine theta, which is sine 60 degrees. So these are similar problems here. So find the 60 degrees. Remember, sine is your opposite, which is root 3, divided by your hypotenuse, which is 2. So root 3 divided by 2. And that's it for 3A. Okay, now I need to plug in 60 for theta. So now I'm finding cos of 60 degrees. So here's my 60 degrees. So basically, the ratio for cos is your adjacent. So my adjacent here is 1, and my hypotenuse is 2. So this is going to be 1 divided by 2. All right, so now we're looking at the 60 degrees from the 30, 60, 90 triangle to figure out these ratios. Next one, I have tan theta. So tan theta here, that's the same thing as tan of 60 degrees. So where is 60 on the triangle? There it is. Tan has a ratio of opposite over the adjacent. So my opposite is root 3. My adjacent is 1. So this is going to be root 3 over 1, which is root 3. Okay, let's go to letter D now. Remember, theta here was 60 degrees, right? So if I plug in 60 here, 60 divided by 2 is 30. So I'm looking for sine of 30 degrees. All right, so where's 30 on the triangle? There it is. What's the ratio for sine? It's your opposite, which is 1, divided by your hypotenuse, which is 2. So 1/2 on that one there. Okay, so for letter E, similar question here. I have my theta being divided by 2. Remember, theta was 60, right? So 60 divided by 2 is 30. So I'm asking for cos of 30 degrees. Where's 30 on the triangle? There it is. What's the ratio for cos? It's your adjacent, which is root 3 divided by your hypotenuse, which is 2, right? So this is root 3 divided by 2. Okay, let's move on to letter G here. I have sine squared theta, and theta is 60 degrees. So this is the same thing as sine of 60 degrees, all to the power of 2. Now, where's 60 degrees? There it is. And what's the ratio for sine? It's your opposite, which is root 3 divided by your hypotenuse, which is 2. So root 3 divided by 2. And all of this is being squared. So root 3 times root 3 is 3, and 2 times 2 is going to be 4. So my final answer is 3 divided by 4. All right. Let's do letter F here. So going a little bit backwards here, tan theta divided by 2 here. So remember, theta was 60 degrees, right? So 60 divided by 2 is 30. So what is tan of 30 degrees? Well, 30 degrees is right there. And what's the ratio for tan? It's your opposite, which is 1 divided by your hypotenuse, which is root 3. So this is going to be 1 over root 3. Okay, what else can we do here? I guess we'll do... All right, let's do a tan squared theta. Maybe, yeah, I think we just did this one here. Did we do that? No. Okay, so this is a different one here. So tan squared theta. Let's do a letter I next. Tan squared theta. So my theta is 60 degrees. So this is going to be tan of 60 all to the power of 2. So where's my 60 degrees? It's right there. And what's my opposite? My opposite is root 3. And what is my adjacent? It is 1. So this is root 3 over 1 all to the power of 2. And that's the same thing as just root 3 times root 3, which is simply going to be 3. Okay, so move on to letter M here. This is the last one I'll do for question 3 here. So I have 4 sine cubed theta divided by 2 divided by 3. So it's a big question here. And I know theta is going to be 60 degrees. So 60 divided by 2 is 30. So this is the same thing as 4 times sine of 30 degrees. And because I have a 3 here, all of this is being raised to the power 3. And then I divide the whole thing by 3 there. Okay, so the big question is, what is sine 30, right? So go to my 30, 60, 90 triangle. Here is 30. Now, sine has a ratio of the opposite over the hypotenuse, right? So 1 over 2. So if I plug that back in, it's 4 times 1/2 all to the power 3 divided by 3. And now we need to work out this ugly mess here. The 4 remains. So 1/2 to the power of 3, that's like the same thing as 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, and that's going to be 1 over 8, all divided by 3. Now 4 times 1 over 8, that's really like 4 over 8, which is 1/2. So 1/2 divided by 3, and 2 times 3 is going to be 6, right? So 1 over 6 is your final answer for letter M. Okay, I'm not sure if I can squeeze this in or not, but we'll try to do a few more questions from part 4 now. Find the exact value of each expression here. Okay, so I see a 60 degrees right here. So let me just draw the 30, 60, 90 triangle one more time here. So this is my 60, 30, this is going to be 2, 1, root 3. Okay, so I need to evaluate sine squared of 60 degrees. So here's my 60. What's the ratio for sine of 60? Well, it's your opposite over your hypotenuse. So it's root 3 divided by 2. Okay, so if I had to redo this, this will be 1 over. And then this sine squared of 60, that's really root 3 divided by 2. And you're squaring that. And then the minus the 4 there. Okay, so remember... to evaluate that, that's really like the same thing as sine 60 all to the power of 2, and we established that sine 60 was root 3 divided by 2 and then raised to the power of 2 there. Alright, so for these kind of problems, once you've kind of substituted the right ratio in, the question is really testing you on whether you can simplify your fractions here. So this is 1 over. Now this part right here, root 3 divided by 2 squared, is really root 3 over 2 times root 3 over 2. Root 3 times root 3 is 3, and 2 times 2 is 4, so this is really 3 over 4, and then I can minus the 4. And now, if you're comfortable with fractions, this pink expression right there, that's the same thing as 4 over 3, and then minus the 4. Now we're almost done here. I need a common denominator here, so I can times this thing by 3 and that by a 3. So this is now going to be 4 over 3 minus 12 over 3. And 4 minus 12 is going to be negative 8. So my final answer is negative 8 over 3. Okay, so yeah, just be very comfortable with how we went from the pink box to over here. I mean, this is the same thing as 1 divided by 3 over 4, which is the same thing as 1 times 4 over 3. And 1 times 4 over 3 is 4 over 3, right? So just be careful with those kind of operations there. Okay, let's go on to letter C now. What do I have for letter C? Let me just erase all this. And I have 4 times tan 45 degrees plus 6 times sine of 30 degrees. Okay, let's go ahead and draw 2 more triangles here, just because I need to substitute a few things. Okay, so for the 45-45 situation, the ratio is 1, 1, root 2. And if you have the 60, 30, 90 triangle, the ratio was, I believe the ratio was 1, 2, root 3. So we need both of those triangles for this next one here. Okay, so this 4 right here remains the same. Now, what's tan of 45 degrees? Well, here's my 45 degrees right there, and tan is your opposite over your adjacent. So my opposite is 1, and my adjacent is 1. So tan 45 is 1 over 1, plus 6 times sine 30. So for my 30 degrees, I go back to this triangle, and sine is really your opposite over your hypotenuse, right? So it's 1 divided by 2, so 1 over 2. And this works out really nice. This is 4 plus 3, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Good. For letter E now, tan 45 degrees, we just did this in the previous problem, so tan 45 is just 1 plus 1 over, and tan 45 is also 1, so 1 over 1 is 1, so this is really 1 plus 1, which is 2. So for letter E, that's going to be 2. Okay, let's move on here. Sine 60 degrees times cos 60 degrees plus tan 45. Well, we know what tan 45 is. That's just going to be 1, so plus 1 there. And then let's go ahead and construct the other 30, 60, 90 triangle one more time. So this is going to be a 60, 30, and this will be root 3. This will be 1, and this will be 2. Okay, so what's sine 60, right? So here's 60 degrees. Sine is your opposite over your hypotenuse, right? So this will be root 3 divided by 2 times, now what's cos of 60? Well, cos of 60 is, going back to the same triangle over here, it's your adjacent over the hypotenuse. So your adjacent here is 1 and your hypotenuse is 2, so this is 1 over 2. So root 3 over 2 times 1/2 plus 1. Okay, so root 3 times 1 is root 3, and 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1. Now 1 is the same thing as 4 over 4, right? 4 over 4 is 1, and you can simplify this as root 3 plus 4, all divided by 4. Okay, let's move on to the next one here. Sine squared 45 plus tan squared 30